First, we reviewed the BUL Armory Axe C Tomahawk, this beauty right here. And some of you said, it's a little too fancy for me, and when I get in scuffles and gravel pits, I don't like to have a cut open slide. So then we reviewed the budget-friendly Axe C Cleaver. This model here, very much more affordable than the Hatchet. And you guys said, yeah, that's great, it's got a closed slide and all, but I'm trying to save money on the pistol so that I can buy an optic to throw on top, and that's not optics ready. So now we've got the Hatchet, Axe C Hatchet in from BUL Armory. Tabletop review coming up. There's also some differences made to the frame. It's a next generation frame, if you will. So we'll highlight what's different there. We'll also show you what's in the box, do a fit, feature, and finish look over, show you how to field strip it, do a chamber fitment check, and of course talk about what's going to be in the range video. All that coming up next on GBGuns. Inside that cardboard box is this nice and rather thick range bag. Got an external pocket for paperwork, etc. Note the texture and color of that nylon because the rest of the bag is different. This has multiple layers, very nicely made range bag. This is what we saw with the Tomahawk, but did not get with the more budget-friendly Cleaver. The Hatchet being in middle ground, nice that they give you the bag. On the top flap, you've got magazine slots for plenty of magazines, which is great for a pistol that accepts clock-compatible magazines, because you're probably going to have a bunch of those. Which ones work with this, we'll find out in the range video. Opening up the flap, we have our packet with actual metal cleaning brushes, a metal jag guide, the wrench for removing the optics plate, some decals, and the manual. More on that in a bit. The bottom of the bag is hook and loop, and you've got these hook and loop straps which you can configure any way you want to hold the pistol, etc. in place. A BUL labeled chamber flag of actual quality, something that's reusable, great for ranges that require it, and a second BUL Armory magazine. We get this stuff out of the way, and we'll take a look first at the manual. Inside the manual bag, there's our cleaning rods and wrench, and pretty cool decal. This is something BUL Armory likes to do, is toss some swag in with their stuff, which I think is really cool. One, it doesn't add a whole lot of total cost to the gun, and two, when you have a BUL Armory, you tend to have some pride in it, so why not show it off? This manual is one that we've been through a few times before on this channel with the other Axe models. We also have a full size. I don't think you guys have seen that video yet, but it's a nice clear manual, black and white, but the writing is good and clear, and the text is in a good size for people of all vision. There are no real crazy notes in here or anything that I find particularly too strange or different about this versus any other pistol manual, or anything necessarily strange compared to other Glock pattern pistols. Speaking of, let's take a look at that gun. And here it is. New frame texture on the sides. We've got no holes on the slide, and it's optics ready. This is the perfect middle ground according to your comments from the other two. Now before we dive into this gun, because I don't want to forget it, I want to take a look at some of the similarities and differences between the Hatchet, the Cleaver, and the Tomahawk. Now as I do this, please ignore the sights that you see on the Tomahawk. Those were swapped as part of a different project, not here on the channel, so they're going to be looking a little bit different. But otherwise, the main update, the biggest change that is visually striking, is this change of texture to the side of the frames. So you can see there, it is not as sharp as you'd think, but it definitely adds some grip. More on that when we get into the details of the gun, but to see it side by side with the former version, here we had these panels, or I guess you could call them squares, that were similar to the nice aggressive ones on the front and back strap, but on the sides they weren't so aggressive so much as they just added a bit of texture. You can see that they don't stand as tall or proud as what's on the back strap and the front strap. That's been replaced with this kind of skateboard tape texture that I think is going to be a good middle ground. We'll have to see. Other than that, the slide is a major difference. And here we have the three in a row with our Hatchet in the middle, the Cleaver below, and the Tomahawk up top. Now both the Hatchet and Tomahawk are optics ready, but the styling on the cuts are a bit different. So see with the texturing, this has more of a dimple type versus these deep grooves that were on the Tomahawk, and of course the window and spiral fluted barrel. No fluting on the barrels for the hatchet or the cleaver, but it's got a bit more of aggressive design, and you may be noticing these relief cuts here. While those do look like they're style only, they can change weight of the slide. That affects reciprocating mass, which affects recoil perception. We'll check that for weight differences real quick. And I also wanted to hit on the guide rod. We had an aluminum guide rod in the cleaver as a way to be an upgrade from polymer, but not quite as expensive as steel like we got with the Tomahawk. And here in the hatchet, we've got the steel again. So in some ways, the hatchet is closer to the Tomahawk than it is to the cleaver. Cleaver remaining your basic model, if you will, your essentials, while still being a significant upgrade from the platform it borrows its design from. The hatchet seems to be right in the middle of these two. I'm going to drop the guide rods out since they are not reciprocating mass, and let's take a look at the weight of these three and see if there's any difference in how much mass is going to be slamming around, or is it all just kind of a visual effect and the engineers very carefully made sure this all matched. Please excuse the change in lighting. I did what I could to try to make this as readable as possible on screen, and that required turning off all of my auxiliary lights. Just for the heck of it, so that you guys have an idea of a base, here is a stock Gen 3 Glock 19 slide with barrel. We're at 15.9 ounces. I hope that's readable. And now our cleaver, 15.3 ounces. As you read these and reflect on them, keep in mind this is reciprocating mass. This is what's slamming back and forth in your hand. Generally, a lighter slide will have less slam at the end of its travel and result in softer recoil. However, some of that mass is needed for the inertia to strip around from the magazine and feed the next round. If you're familiar with messing around with AR bolts, you've seen this before. Now our hatchet model, 14.2 ounces. That's a bit lighter. In fact, that's a whole red dot, heavy red dot lighter than your stock Gen 3 Glock 19. And lastly, our Tomahawk, 14 ounces even. Oh, 13.9. It lost a tenth of an ounce while I was talking. So what we're seeing with the hatchet is once again a middle ground between the cleaver and the Tomahawk. And now when it comes to your reciprocating mass down below, that is the guide rod and spring, a little bit more weight up here can help reduce muzzle flip. This is out of the Gen 3 Glock 19. If I can get it to stand still, 0.3 ounces. The aluminum guide rod that comes in the cleaver, 0.5 ounces, adds a little bit of weight. And the steel guide rod, as you get in the hatchet and in the Tomahawk, 0.8 ounces. Once again, we've got an upgrade here. With that all the way, we can do our standard, take a look at the gun. We've got clear, magazine's in. Do we get magazine ejection or release? And it's release, as we've come to expect from having polymer on polymer. That's just the nature of the game. Yes, it drops free without issues. However, there's no additional kick, probably because of the friction between the side of the magazine and the inside of the pistol itself. These magazines, by the way, from BUL Armory have kind of a salmon follower. You can see they're steel lined, witness windows on the back, and a nice floor plate with little wings that line up very well with these cutouts to assist in stripping if you're not familiar with the right way to clear a Type 3 malfunction. On to the rest of the gun. Now, this is Gen 3 Glock 19 based, as I'm sure you've guessed by now, but just about everything in it has been upgraded and detailed. For example, your pins, you notice, are dimpled steel solid cross pins there. They're not roll pins, so these are easier to drive out for getting maintenance to clean things up, or if you wanted to swap parts. I don't know why you'd want to, though. These pistols are actually pretty darn nice. Also going to notice that we've got relief here for the takedown. It sticks out enough. You don't have to dig a fingernail in there and then break the edge of your fingernail off to get at it. We also have this ledge here, which serves as a good memory point for your trigger finger when keeping straight. Also a resting spot for your support hand thumb for hands that are smaller than mine. So I wear a XXL glove just to give you perspective, and if I grab this naturally and go thumb forward, my thumb kind of misses that. I end up somewhere up on the rail, but for everyone else that's going to be a great spot to hold on to. Bring it in to take a look at this texture. It's kind of the golf ball dimpling, I guess you could say, texturing, which is very grippy without necessarily being deep lines, which I think is kind of clever. Slide to frame fit up front. We have play vertically and side to side. Is that going to impact accuracy? We'll find out when we get to the range. Coming up the front, see we've got these snout cuts here. That's part of BUL Armory remaining in the clear and not having the board Glocks come after them for the silhouette of the gun. Believe it or not, that's something that Glock has trademarked, and they have pursued companies for emulating that shape too much. Look at the front, the crown, if I can get our camera to focus. We have a little target crown inside that edge there to help protect the rifling, but an otherwise very flush and smooth look. In this angular cut, which is the signature of BUL Armory's sights, underneath we've got actual rail space. So regardless of your size, within reason, you can fit something there for rail. The trigger guard has a bit of a scallop here to work for adding traction for people who like to put a finger up front there. We also have scalloping on the sides, swooping in, for those who like to use the trigger guard as a reference point to keep their finger straight. So you've got there or there, depending on your flexibility or your training habits. Nice international touch. Slight double undercut of the trigger guard, not a whole lot, but the actual place where most undercutting happens is really nice, and I can say from having shot this frame shape on 3 other guns already that Glock knuckle is not a thing. Since we're here, let's do some trigger talk. Trying to get some lighting in there. You can see we've got nice dimples on this aluminum trigger that feels pretty darn good. They've been using the same trigger in all of these XC models. Our safety works. We've got light spring-loaded tension taking us to a wall. And brake. The brake has a little bit of slide to it, like you'd expect from a striker-fired gun, but pretty firm wall. We've got a positive return back right to that wall. It's pretty nice. Alright, now let's get back to the rest of the gun. Hopefully this is also giving you a better chance to see that texture up close. The front strap, I love this design. This is a brilliant idea. You can see these wedges kind of come up at an angle. That's to help resist and provide traction as the gun rocks back under recoil. And then on the back side, it's also going up, which I don't know. I wish it was going down to really counter that, but I guess this way you've got friction in the back for as the gun slams forward. In return, we have a little toe kick here to help medium-sized hands keep clear from reloads, and even my hand clear from reload. I have almost an instinctive kick of that pinky when I reload because I've smashed my finger so many times on compact size guns. And we can see we've got a little bit of beveling here to aid with reload. Our rear slide to frame fit is tight. A little bit of rockable, but not really much else movement. We also have quite the beaver tail here to help protect against, let's see if I fat hand this as much as possible. I'm still well clear of getting slide bite. Nice touch. And our steel sights, which even though this has a bit of a ramp, it is still catchable to be able to rack things off of. I had to do that on another BUL Armory with some out of spec ammo that sealed up tight in the chamber. I ended up having to beat the gun on a bench to unlock it, and I was using that ledge on the rear sight to do that. You can also see that our rear plate has room for laser engraving for the people that like to do that, and 3 white dot sights. It's in big. We also have the optics plate cover. Coming around the other side of the gun, we have a reversible magazine release, but for slide release you're stuck reaching over to the left side. Next we'll field strip the hatchet and take a look inside the gun. And field stripping the XC hatchet is going to look very familiar to a lot of you. We're going to make sure it's clear. We're going to release the striker, pull down on these takedown tabs on both sides of the gun, and squeeze here to bring the slide back just a little bit. You'll feel it unlock, and the slide can come forward and off. This gives us a chance to look at our internals of the frame. You can see we've got pretty good polish on the steel there. Nice extra chunk of steel up front for the ID plate. That's where they put the serial number on these. And now to take our slide apart, we're going to put some pressure on the recoil spring and it will come out. Tap down on the barrel and bring it forward until it can tilt, and that brings it out. And now you can take a look inside the slide. Nicely rounded safety plunger there. Everything else looks pretty standard. A little bit of smut from test firing. And next, let me wipe this clean and we'll do our chamber fitment test. Tell you what, this is a snug barrel. I use the Real Avid Bore Boss for pulling through barrels and wiping stuff up, since they've got nice fat cord on there. Those of you guys that have been with the channel for a while may remember me first reviewing one of these like 7 years ago. But anyways, they have this little notch in here that you sink a ball into to be able to use as a handle and really pull. And I almost never have to do it on pistol barrels, but I did on this one, so it's snug. For chamber fitment, you take known good quality ammunition, in this case Liberty Ammunition Civil Defense round. This is nickel plated, which should help with friction, and we're going to drop it in and listen for a plunk. Just like that. Make sure it can turn freely, which it can. And then what you want to look at is how much brass beyond that shoulder is exposed. And as you can see, there's not much. A little bit underneath, as is standard for the Glock design, but otherwise nicely fits in there, and it should drop right out. That's an unfired case, of course. Fired cases have expanded, and those require extraction effort, which is how guns work. Anyways, so that chamber looks good so far. It's just that bore felt awfully snug. We'll see. Maybe it's just me. Who knows? As I get this back together by reversing the disassembly process, talk about what's going to be in the range video. You're going to get cold shot first impressions, which are our absolute first shots through the gun. Full magazine +1. See how the gun runs fully stuffed with the ammunition we have on hand that day. We'll do the multi-mag test, since this takes Glock pattern magazines. I've got about a dozen Glock pattern magazines aftermarket. We'll run 8 or so of them through this and let you know how they fit, feel, and function, since not all Glock pattern guns accept all Glock pattern magazines. It's just a rule of stacking tolerances. So watch for that if you're like me and have a bunch of different magazines. Our trademark What's for Dinner test, see what the gun eats, running 10 different loads through it of all different types. Take it over to our spinner for sights and trigger control, do some practical accuracy, 5 shots from 7 yards, and then give you concluding thoughts. But so far, I'm liking it. I think the Axie Hatchet is going to be that perfect middle ground that people have been looking for. Just to rephrase and remind, with the cleaver, you've got a very affordable basic option, but people said if they're going to save money, it's so they can put a red dot on it. You know, it's 2023, it's trendy, everyone likes it. The Tomahawk was optics ready, but between the big slide window and the fluted cuts, or fluted barrel, it's not an inexpensive gun. Costs quite a bit. Interestingly enough, I've had more than one manufacturer tell me that these optics cuts are one of the most expensive parts of producing pistols. And so when you want to add that optics cut, yes, there is an increased cost to the consumer. I saw some comments, people complaining about, oh, they just do that so it's an upcharge. No, the gun costs more to make. That's why it costs more to you. Yes, companies are in business to make money. That's the purpose of a business. However, when you see a $100 to $200 increase, sometimes even more depending on the system, going from no optics to optics ready, that's because it costs them more to make it. Anyways, that concludes our tabletop of the Axie Hatchet from BUL Armory. We'll see you guys in the range. Thanks for watching.